morning, everyone. Oh, that fabulous tune is The Minor Spaniard. The tune is adapted by Jenny Beer. The dance is The Spaniard. The choreographer is Jenny Beer. The band is Third String Trio with musicians Karen Axelrod, Kate Barnes, and Aldo Fabrizi. The CD is al fresco. And the only place we know to buy it is from Karen Axelrod. So we are posting her email address so you can reach out to her. So yeah, what a great album. Boy, I love this album. So if you don't know, then I suggest you contact her about getting a copy of it. I'm Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. And on our team, we have Lindsay Verbal. Hi, Lindsay. And she's helping with all the managing of media and with our guests and with our attendees and questions and things. And speaking of questions, a great place to do something with those questions that you have for our guest is by posting them in the chat box. We have Reed Wilson here on Zoom responding. And hi, Reed. I love your candy shop. It's a good time of year for it. He's going to be posting and he's going to be, oh no, I like the candy shop. That's funny. Reed's going to be posting in Zoom any important links and things like that. And he's also going to be grabbing your questions out of Zoom and sending them on to us so we can ask them to our guest either here or in the after talk. And then we're also live on Facebook, and we have Larry Henson on Facebook. Hi, Larry. And he's our Facebook angel. He's out there posting every place he goes and letting people know how you can tune into 5 things. So thank you so much, Larry. He is, I'm sorry, I'm breaking my own rule. Never read the chat. And of course, David Millstone has given us some updated information, which I knew somebody would. So anyways, Reed, why don't you grab that and Larry can post it on Facebook for the people. But I actually love that about this community. Whenever we don't know something, somebody's going to post the answer to it. So it's a wonderful aspect of this. Anyways, Larry is grabbing those questions you may have from Facebook and sending them to us too. So make sure if you have questions, we love that part of the interview and the web chat. It makes it all fun and interactive. So please feel free to ask. Make sure you stick around and join us for the after talk, because any questions that don't get answered here will get answered there. So let's see, what else did I forget? Oh, well, I forgot my, every week we have to thank Karen Axelrod for her wonderful program. So thank you. We love it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to get to our bio on Martha Griffin. Martha has been involved in social dance for more than 30 years. She's a dancer, a performer, a caller, a dance teacher, and a choreographer of many different styles of dance. She's a longtime member and co-director of the English country dance performing group Real Nutmeg, based in Hartford, Connecticut, and she's called many of their balls. As co-director of the Vintage Dance Society, she taught social dances stretching from the Victorian era through the age of ragtime. With their performance group, Polite Society, she performed in locations around the country and even the world, which we will hear more about this hour a bit. And in addition to all of that, she is a top-notch English country dance caller, so we're really thrilled to have her. Please welcome Martha Griffin. Hi, Martha.
Hi,
good to have you with us. So we're going to jump right into your things, okay? And great. So thing number 1, introduction.
So first off, I thought it's a nice little trivia. I would share that my last name, Griffin, is actually a mythological creature with the head of an eagle and the tail of a lion. And in this case, there are 4 paws from the lion. And I actually collect griffins. Please don't send me tons of griffins. You can send me photos, but I do collect griffins. They aren't that common. So that was just a little trivia. But for me, Movement is something that's very natural to me. It comes very easily. It always has. And when I was, I think that's one of the reasons I do massage therapy, is that it helps me relate to the body, and it's a physical occupation. And when I was young, at about 6 years old, my parents had me go to a dance class, and I just fell in love with it. And the dance school I was with, I grew up in New Jersey, and the dance class, the dance studio would bring teachers from New York City. So I was introduced to a lot of modern dance teachers, jazz, and all that kind of stuff. Then at about the age of 13, I was invited to join a performing group that would go around to different high schools and different festivals in New Jersey and perform original pieces. And I think we have a PR photo from one of our performances. That's me. And that was a dance where the guy played, Craig played Hades, and I played Persephone. And we personified the myth of Persephone being captured by Hades and taken down to Hades, and the myth about why we have the seasons. So that was fun. And I did that all through high school. Fast forward, and then when I was moving to Connecticut to go to massage school, my brother encouraged me to go to social dances. I had done some contra dancing before, so I started going to contra dancing, and it was great at the end of the week to blow off steam and just dance my heart out and meet a lot of people and have a great time. And I enjoyed that. And then they introduced me to other types of dance, and one of them was vintage. I was invited to go to a Valentine's dance, Valentine's vintage dance, vintage being a coin termed by Richard Powers, which means at the time meant anything from 1840 to 1925, because at that point it was dances that were no longer done. That's gotten expanded now, but it's still called vintage. And in the car ride to my first dance, I ran to the Goodwill and got a cheap gown that looked good, and got in the car, and we're driving, and I meet Mark Hassler, who has workshops in the Hartford area. So I started going to the workshops, and then he had a performance he was going to be doing with the Meriden Symphony. And he had plenty of dancers, especially women, but he needed a stage manager, which I had done with our performing group. And so when I was a young person, and so I stage managed, and then we started performing, and things evolved, and slowly I became the co-director of the Vintage Dance Society. So I was doing a lot of performing and dancing with them and going to balls all over the place. And in the meantime, I had also been introduced to English. Friends took me down to New Haven, and I danced with, I forget the name of the music school in New Haven, with Christine Hellwig. And that was like every other Friday. And she had a very serene and friendly style. And so I fell in love with English. And so I went to a lot of English balls. I went to Westchester, I went to New York, Real Nutmeg Ball, and got introduced to Real Nutmeg, and Real Nutmeg invited me to join. And so I would dance with Real Nutmeg. And I think we have some photos of Real Nutmeg. This is our group. Unfortunately, Real Nutmeg no longer exists. We had to disband, but that's a photo of us performing. I don't remember where it is, but that's Helen in the left corner, and I'm in the far right. And Real Nutmeg put together suites and met every week. So I got to do English country dance every week. Here we are in our period attire. That's Ira Laby in the front, and Beth Del Negro and other folks. And so this is us dancing in period attire, which I had made. I did not make that gown. And here I am with Mark Hassler. This was a case where it crossed over into the Vintage Society. This was outside of Boston. We were invited to do some English country dances. And so we were dressed in period attire, and there was all this topiary. It was a beautiful location. It was fabulous. And I think we have one more of us dancing. Yeah. So we were doing a minuet at that point. That was kind of everything that brought me to social dance. And in this area. So.
Okay, hang on a second.
I got ahead of you there.
Yes, a little bit. And I have some questions to ask you about some of that, but we're going to wait till a little bit later. So
Okay.
we're going to move into thing two. Thing two is variety.
For me, variety, as they say, is the spice of life. I don't like doing one thing for too long. So I love different dance styles and different dances. One of the things I like about vintage is the variety of styles. So if the 19th century, you have the waltz, you have the mazurka, you have the polka, you have set dances, long ways, you have quadrilles, and plus you also have all the variety of the clothes, which is also very interesting, anything from mid-century to late century. So that's also very intriguing. The challenges of the Victorian era for me are the footwork. It isn't all walking steps. There's various mazurka, very fast steps. And in the Regency era, there's all the almost balletic steps. So that appealed to my background, and I really enjoyed that. I also liked the variety of partner dancing versus set dancing. So it was mixed. And it was very social. So there also was the variety of meeting a lot of people. And sometimes at vintage events, it isn't just Victorian or ragtime. Sometimes it's mixed in the whole evening. So I really enjoyed that. For me, with vintage, I'm not so interested in research. For me, I like to do a dance, and if it's fun, I figure they did it back then too. If it's not so much fun to do, I kind of question whether they actually did it, even though it's in the manual. So that's kind of my homage to research of kind of like what's fun to do. So I really love vintage, and for many, many years did a lot of it, performing all over the place. We were at Biltmore, at the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. We traveled to Japan. We were up at Mohonk Mountain House. We often were at the Vanderbilt camp up in the Adirondacks, traveling all around the country and various places. And even my niece was really interested in trying on all my period costumes. It was kind of fun. So that had a lot of variety. As I started doing less vintage, just because I kind of burned out on it a little bit and just got tired, I needed a bit of a break, English came back, and English has that same variety for me. It has the variety of modern versus old, and that has a different feel. All the different tempos and all the different styles. And so in an evening, you don't always hear the same grinding beat or the same lyrical. It's a lot of variety, and that appeals to me. So I really like that. What I find challenging in the English is always remembering the figures, the dances. And for me, part of it is that comes easily. If I walk through a dance once, I usually have it. At Real Nutmeg, Helen would always joke, she would call the dance and then she'd say, oh, Martha, you call it now. You probably already have it under your belt, which was often true, but not always. So I really enjoyed that challenge. And in Real Nutmeg, we put together suites. And the idea of the suites came about from a friend of theirs, Paul Wedeel, who used to play live music for them. He was a fiddler, a violinist and a fiddler, who went on to play for Broadway. He was concertmaster for the first Fiddler on the Roof way back in whenever it was. But he was at the Hart School of Music here in Hartford, and he wanted to do a graduate concert performance, and he wanted to play a combination of English tunes. And he thought it would be wonderful to have Real Nutmeg, this was long before I joined them, do a suite of dances. And the idea was that they would transition, rather than doing one dance, stopping, doing another dance, stopping, they would flow from one dance to the other and find an interesting way to transition into the next dance. And so that style, that suite, is kind of what Real Nutmeg became known for. And so every year we would work on doing a suite initially to do at NEFA. And then when we were no longer doing NEFA, it was either Nomad, or in the case of something we're going to see, it was at the Celebration of Spring in Westchester, their ball. They invited us to come and perform during their break in the middle of the ball. So the one we're going to see is from 2003 as a Celebration of Spring Ball. And not only did we play with transitions between dances, but we got into, and this is the part I really enjoyed, playing with the dances themselves. So perhaps some of you know Shrewsbury Lasses, which is a three couple dance, you know, and it's very flirtatious. The first man sets to the second woman and honors her and flirts, and then the first woman sets to the second man and flirts with her. So often when Real Nutmeg would do suites, they would do like three couples back to back, three couple sets back to back. But in this one, somebody came up with the idea of saying, what if we did it for 5 couples? And we were like, okay, what do we do with 5 couples? So what we have is we have 2 sets of 2 couples, and the middle couple is in both sets. And so what you're going to see is a transition from 4 people being on stage to adding the 5th couple, and then you'll see Shrewsbury Lasses for 5 couples. Here we go. Let's see what it looks like. So that's Shrewsbury Lasses for 5 couples. And that version is actually available in our book, which is called Twiddles, Twists, and Conundrums, presented by Real Nutmeg. And this is available at the CDSS store. I checked. And we did that for our 30th anniversary in 2010. And so the name of the name of this suite is called A Flirt with a Twist, because in the dances there might be a slight variation, where in this case, we really played with it and made a 3-couple dance into a 5-couple dance. We didn't always do that. And I wouldn't say this is something to be done at a ball. What I find that's really fun about it is that if you're in a group and you have an odd number of people, you know, like you always have 4 couples, sometimes, you know, you want to do one of your favorite dances long ways, but if you do it for a long ways for 4 couples, you're not dancing that much. So we found ways of doing a 4-couple dance, maybe in a square, or maybe we did a version of St. Margaret's Hill for 4 couples instead of 3. You know, we would change and play with it. And that's where it came out of. So, you know, that for me was the joy and the variety in Real Nutmeg, is that it was fun to do and play. It was early on, some of the suites were designed by one person, like Val Medvey did a suite, and Dale Montausik did a suite. But often later on, it was a group process, sometimes challenging, sometimes easier. You know, a lot of people had opinions. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And it's Jim Greggy was the first leader, and then Helen took over, and Helen was really good at managing the personalities and kind of like, okay, let's try this, or let's not try this. And it was fun. That was the part I liked the most, was playing with the dances. And even today, when I'm dancing a dance, I'm kind of like, oh, I wonder what this would be like this way, or what if we did this? And so that's fun for me. Darlene, do you want to show another one, or you want to save that for the after talk?
No, we want to show that other one. It's great.
Okay. So let me introduce the next one, which is Mr. Jersey's Memorial. And this one is a long ways, and it's a beautiful old long ways, very sweeping. And at one point, the ones are doing one thing and the twos are doing a different thing. And so we said, what if we do it in a square? And so you'll notice that the head couples are like the ones and the side couples are like the twos. And if you know the dance, there's a part where the other thing is that with Real Nutmeg, we tried to keep the style and the movements of the dance in tune with the original dance, because that's what we were doing. And so when there's a circle, for 4, you'll notice there's a circle for 8, and then they separate and do this couple, this huge couple back to back. So let's see Mr. Jersey's Memorial. Yeah, the trick with that is then the side couples become the head couple and the head couples become the twos. And part of it, when you switch that way, is that your brain just starts doing these twists in your head and can be very confusing. I find that stuff very fun. I find that when I'm dancing with someone doing vintage and I'm the follower, that I can easily become the lead. Somehow I have this knack for learning the other part. And what's hard for me is that not everyone has that ability, in fact, finds it hard. And so I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'll just switch. And they're like, huh? How do you do that? Or what is the other part doing? And I find that challenge fun. So I like that. So that's why I like the variety.
Well, you are getting a lot of great compliments on those dances, so I think we're going to be talking about them a bit in the after talk. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is our group grew out of vintage dance, because the first things we did were Victorian balls, and then we discovered the joy of ECDs. But it's really interesting because I find that there's a lot of people that dance ECD and they don't seem as receptive to vintage dance. And my thought is always, well, you've been doing, a lot of this stuff anyways. We just sort of think of it a little bit differently. And I was wondering if you have any advice for those of us who would like to convince some of these English country dancers to come over to the other side a little bit.
I think the easiest crossover is like the Regency era. Because the dances you can do English country dances. Early on, when I was doing vintage, we were doing all the chasse, jeté, ensemble, all the fancy footwork. And as with the English community, the vintage community is getting older, and even I, a whole evening of doing that, or or doing fancy steps like the Charleston is just too fatiguing. So starting with Regency, and we've had some Regency dances that have brought in ECD dancers, and actually Real Nutmeg no longer exists, and the Real Nutmeg Ball doesn't exist anymore. But Mark and I were going to do a ball in May. Unfortunately, had to get canceled, and it was going to be a Regency ball. And so that we were hoping to draw on both the vintage community, the Regency community, and the English community. I think sometimes it can be a little intimidating because of the clothes and the dressing, depending on your community. I find that the set dances of the Victorian era are much easier than English dances. I don't know, it's true here, there are not many who cross over. There are more that come from the vintage community into English and find that hard because of the vocabulary is so different. I don't see that many English dancers that do vintage. And I think the question might be for them is, why not? Is it that they haven't had a lot of exposure and maybe they're intimidated? Because in an English dance, every dance is called. And at a vintage dance, the set dances are called or the quadrilles are called. But then you have a lot of couple dances and not everybody knows how to waltz and not everybody knows how to polka. And in the ragtime era, there aren't set dances. So I don't know why people aren't interested. I'd be curious to find out what people said. Put your comments in the chat.
And I think, speaking of comments and questions, Lindsay, why don't you ask that question? Because I thought it was really interesting since Martha has brought it up several times.
Yes, so Christine McKay just asked, or rather she's curious if you can share any tips on how you remember learning the role switching so easily. Any tips?
For me, it's almost instinctive, so I don't necessarily learn it. But what I would recommend if you want to learn the other role is spend a whole workshop or a whole dance being the other role rather than trying to switch back and forth, since many people find it difficult to do the other role. Like if you're in a workshop or if you're at a dance, try being the lead for much of it. And I would recommend, if you're going to be a lead, dance with experienced dancers who can follow, because you will get better at leading if you have experienced followers. If you're trying to lead beginners and you're both learning how to do it, it's really, really frustrating. And in English, if you're learning a new role, you're a beginner at that part. So maybe dance with more experienced dancers, and that will help, would be my advice.
Thank you.
Cool. I think we're going to move on to thing 3.
Okay.
Connection.
This is what makes me want to dance. This is what I am missing desperately in these times of not dancing, is the connection. For me, dancing is a conversation, and many times a nonverbal conversation. So it's the conversation I'm having with my partner. It's the give and take of the flirtatious, the eye contact. It's kind of, so how far can I go? What are you saying? And how are you responding to how I'm dancing? And it's also the set itself. So when I go down first dance of the evening and it's a long ways, I meet all the people in line. It's kind of see who's here, connect, and each person I try and match where they are. And I think this is also what I have in common with my work with massage therapy, is that I'm always trying to connect with my client. And so I bring that to dance. It's kind of like, if someone is doing minimal, I kind of like, okay, what does that feel like? Or if they're really exaggerated, I try and match them, each person where they are. And then the other thing that is always the basis for it for me is the music. The music drives it. And so if I'm just sitting on the sideline listening to the music, my feet are tapping, my body's moving, and even when I'm calling, I can't stand still. I have to move to the dance or do something because the music is my inspiration. So when the music and my partner and the set are all, for lack of a better word, congruent, there is no better magic for me. And you know, the idea that the music tells you what to do and it just seems to flow effortlessly, that is utopia for me. And I really love that, and I really miss it. And you know, I can during this pandemic, I have been outside gardening because I need something physical to do, and I've been listening to music. And even as I'm doing my gardening, I'm like, the dance is going on in my head, and I'm thinking of partners I've had, and how I would dance, or how this particular version, like how Alchemy plays compared to Bare Necessities, how it's a different style and how it feels different. And so, boy, I'm getting choked up just like thinking about the connection with people, and I really miss that very much.
Oh,
One day we'll get there.
as we all do. Yeah. Um, you said something really interesting when we were having our rehearsal, the tech rehearsal, about calling and dancing. And I was wondering if you might speak about that a little
Because dancing, excuse me, is so much a part of me, and movement is kind of how I live. I need to dance for the sheer pleasure of it, as well as calling. So I have to have the balance in my life of calling and dancing. So for a long time, when Vintage was performing and leading, and you know, leading balls and going places, English was my escape to dance. And even now, when I'm scheduling calling at various places, I still have to have places that I can go and dance. And I'm a participant, and it's like, nope, I'm not calling. You know, people are like, oh, don't you, you know, will you call a couple of dances? It's like, well, maybe, but I really just came to dance, and that's what I want. And we need people on the dance floor having that energy and that charge, and getting fed and nurtured. And so there is a different feel when I'm calling. Part of it is dancing is so second nature to me that I don't have to think, and calling, I'm using my brain a lot. And so sometimes I don't want to use my brain. I just want to have fun.
bit. Understandable. Definitely understandable. All right, let's move into thing number 4. Moment.
Moment. So for me, connection is one thing that definitely feeds me. The other thing is that in each dance, finding or treasuring the special moment. I very much remember the first time I did Dublin Bay. And I remember, you know, you swing, you do that turn by the right arm, elbow, and you get into that line, and you go forward and you turn around and you fall back, and then you come forward and you turn around and you fall back. And I went, oh, this is like being at the ocean. This is like being the water on the beach. And every time I do that movement, I feel like I'm at the beach. I feel like I'm the ocean. I feel greater than myself. And it isn't just the people in the room. It's just, I don't know, it's cosmic for me. So one reason that I like Gary Rudman's dances that have that move, you know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's a Gary Rudman dance. So guess what? We're going to be doing this. Not every Gary Rudman has that movement, that figure, but I always like that movement. So for me, that's a real charge that I like. Another one is, and this is in several dances, it's in Alice, and it's also in the Old Mill, where you're leading your partner and the partner is following you, and suddenly you turn over your shoulder and there they are, and you turn them, you know, either by one arm or two hands. And that kind of like anticipation, and then they're there, is once again a time that catches my breath. And I really, I love that. And so those are the moments I'm looking for. Sometimes it can be a whole dance. For me, I was at a weekend with, and it was an English country dance weekend with some contra dancing, and then they had waltzes. Of course, you always have lots of waltzes. And I caught Irv's eye. This is Irv Cass, and many of you know Irv. And I caught his eye across the room, and it was a waltz playing. I don't remember who was playing. And we started waltzing together just with eye contact. We did not touch. And we moved around the floor, and we didn't bump into anyone. We didn't even look away. It's just like, it was just, our path was just ordained around the dance floor, and we just kept moving and moving and moving. It was a whole dance that was completely magical. We just never lost eye contact. And if, for some of you who may or may not know Irv, we have a picture of Irv, right, and myself at a, and I think this is from a New York ball. There he is. He died very suddenly, and I miss him very much, as do many of people in the English community. And I still have this memory of this waltz in my head. And of course, I could never try and repeat it because Irv is gone, and in some ways that's a good thing. And I have with other people had that similar experience. Somehow that was the first time, and we kept like coming closer and going apart, but never ever touching. And it was completely magical. In that case, the whole waltz was magical. When people ask me in vintage what my favorite dance is, I always say waltz, because it's part of Victorian and ragtime. For me, it's the romance of it. I don't know, I must be a romantic at heart. And the music, the swirling of the music, looking at my partner. They don't have to do fancy steps. It can be just in each other's arms, just waltzing around the room the whole time. And every time I waltz with someone, I fall in love with them until the next waltz. And then I fall in love with the next person on the dance floor. It's magical. And I must admit, I still remember that waltz with Irv. So that's pretty special. And for me, that when I'm dancing, those are the moments I really, really treasure. And those are the moments I'm looking for. I have, it's also sometimes the music, like in Stepping Stones, there's a point where you're doing this huge back-to-back and the music is just soaring. And that's really special. Or in Beach Spring, there's that whole connection with the entire set dancing together, and the music is very ethereal. To me, that is like being in a cathedral and dancing in a cathedral. Those moments are like chocolates, you know, like Forrest Gump, you know, you have a box full of chocolates and you keep treasuring the different moments. And I think when I'm dancing, I'm looking for them. And when I'm calling, because that's important to me, that's one of the things I also want to impart for people, for them to experience or to find. And sometimes it's just meeting someone and starting to dance with them. And it might be the simplest dance, but sometimes maybe it's the partner that makes the moment. It's like, oh yeah, I've done this dance and it's an okay dance. And yet with this person, it's amazing. You know, in that case, it is the partner I'm with or the set I'm with, or that just makes it very special. Or maybe it's the music that day that makes it that special. And you never know. You never know when it's going to come. So you keep dancing, looking for those moments, hoping you find more. And you do. There's just more chocolate out there for you to have. And I'm a chocoholic. I mean, I have it in vintage too. When I'm teaching, when I'm calling English dances, I sometimes point out a special moment, especially if it's beginners. Or in vintage, when I'm teaching one step and we do a promenade turnout, which is something I see in the film, see Fred Astaire's doing a lot. There's just magic to that. Or I have a mixer of a tango I do, and it's kind of like there's some special moments in that to find. Um, Tango, that the mixer is a little more schmaltzy, but still fun, and in a group you can just love that. So it's a lot. Those are the things. Those moments are what I treasure.
So, yeah, and they're great moments. What about some of those amazing places that you've performed as a vintage dancer? And some of those moments, I want to hear one or two of those, if you don't mind.
Well, one of the big ones, the first performance that the Vintage Dance Society did with the Meriden Symphony, I was backstage, and the orchestra was actually on stage, and then there was 12 feet that they were dancing in. And I don't know how many dancers we had, must have had like 24 or 30 dancers in that small space for various things. The next time we danced with the Meriden Symphony, the orchestra was down in the pit, and we were on stage, and we had the whole stage to ourselves, and dancing to a 60-piece orchestra playing Just for You, and that was incredible. Also did that with the Hartford Symphony at one point. Performed with the Hartford Symphony. That we just did one dance. There were 4 of us. That was a lot of fun. And then there was we were down in North Carolina and performed at the Biltmore. And the first year we were there, we were out front on this stone foundation, and here we are doing all these fancy steps. We did 3 half-hour sets a day for 2 days, and so by the end of it, my feet were killing me, but it was so beautiful to be dancing in front of the Biltmore. Later on, a couple years later, they actually built a stage in a garden that we performed on, and then we actually also performed in the Winter Garden in the house. They normally didn't have people in the house, so that was pretty cool. And then we also traveled to Japan and performed with the New York Ragtime Orchestra, and we went to Kyoto and performed there. And the Japanese just love jazz and ragtime music, so they were thrilled, and so we were dancing with them, and that was very interesting. Only place in my life where, they're asking for your autograph. I'm like, you want my autograph? Okay. I'm like, don't really think of that. But that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Long trip, interesting, but a lot of fun to do that. Where else? Oh, and at Mohawk Mountain House in New York, Mark and I spent a week, and I dressed the whole time. So I wore a corset the whole week. And the food there is fabulous. And I would take 4 bites and say, okay, I'm done. I can't eat anymore. Because I was corseted the whole time. Even when we went swimming, I had a corset underneath my bathing costume. By the end of the week, I was so happy to finally get out of my Victorian clothes and actually go hiking in real clothes. And when I look at original pictures, there's women in corsets. I mean, they weren't tight, snug corsets, but they were wearing corsets and hiking. Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did in heels and backwards, and Victorian women did a lot that men did in corsets and long skirts. And it was really, really hot. And I remember I had, all the underpinnings on. And I mean, I wasn't real active, but I actually was cooler because all the underpinnings were wet. And so it kept me cool. I was like, oh, this is how they did that. And when I actually, had t-shirt and shorts on, I was like, I liked when it was cool next to my skin. That was nice. I kind of learned how they actually managed in all the heat. So that was very interesting. Those are the most memorable of the performances I can think of. Oh, I do remember one of a wardrobe malfunction.
Oh,
yeah, this was memorable. We were leading a dance, and it was like the final waltz, and I'm waltzing, and suddenly I hear a pop, and I looked down in my hoop from my Civil War ball gown. The string had broken and the hoop is now on the floor. And I stepped out of it. We kind of picked it up, threw it to the side, and kept waltzing. You know, those are also memorable moments. It happens to the best of us. I mean, I've lost a shoe here or there, but never had I lost an underpinning before. So that was interesting.
The all the insides of Victorian dressing and the secret things that we didn't know.
Yeah.
That was really
After that, it wasn't that it came untied. It was literally that it broke. So there was nothing I could have done to prevent it. I was like, yeah, because if it had come untied, I would say, okay, after that I double knotted, but it was like it literally snapped. Bye-bye.
We could talk about wardrobe malfunctions in the after talk because
I know.
I'm sure there's several of them out there. All right.
Yes, I do have a couple others, but that was the most PG.
Yes. Let's move on to thing number 5.
Thing number 5.
The journey.
Journey. So dance for me has been a journey because I danced just to enjoy myself. So it was for my own pleasure because it felt good. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. It came naturally. That was my start. And then I found that there's community. First, it was the performing group I was in. Now with social dancing, it's the community of English couple, English country dancing, the vintage community. It's the connection with people, and it comes through dance. So, you know, the conversation is always, so where are you dancing now? Or where are you going next? Or will I see you at the next ball? Or, you know, dance is the commonality, which I really love. And then dance also led me to teach and to help others. When I was in the performing group, because I could learn dances easily, the director of the group actually had me like dance captain. I would practice the dances. I would teach the dances. She also was a mentor for me and helped, said, you know, I'm doing West Side Story. Will you choreograph one of the dances? And will you help teach the other dances? And so that was also the beginning for me of learning how to teach dances or how to practice or how to call them and these were modern dances at the time. And then as I started doing vintage, that was also how to teach the fancy stepping and still make it fun, or how to simplify something so that it would be more interesting. With Mark, we used to do Wednesday night workshops every week from like October until May in Hartford. We would have Wednesday night workshops for 2 hours. And the community would come and we would teach. And sometimes I partnered him, but often, you know, he was busy. And so I started teaching and we would split the teaching. He would teach half the classes and then I would teach. And anywhere I've gone with vintage, like Cape May, I was in Cape May, and they would have like 3 workshops and a ball. Or if people are going to have a ball for Victorian or ragtime, and it's like, well, we don't know what that is. So can you teach a lesson? So you have to teach, and you have to figure out, you know, are these rank beginners who don't even know how to walk or how to walk to music? And so learning that. And in the English community, Helen was the leader for Real Nutmeg for a long time, and she was getting tired and worn down, and so she asked me to teach, to call, and she said, you know, if we're going to continue as a group, I need help, and so she was a great mentor. She gave me the music, she gave me the dances, she encouraged me to do the dances at Real Nutmeg. And at Real Nutmeg, we no longer had live musicians, so we were doing it to recorded music, which is in some ways easy because you don't have to worry about the musicians behind you. You know, you turn the music on and it happens if you have good recordings. And I seemed to have a knack. If it was a complicated dance, one, I could learn it quickly and then we could figure out how to do it. So that was fun. And she encouraged me to call it the balls. And so then she said, okay, so now you need to go do it other places. And she would tell people, you know, why don't you have Martha come call? Or, you know, so I called up in Amherst, at the Amherst dance. I called down in Rhode Island. And for me, then there was this huge learning curve of how do I plan a program? And for me, it always starts with the music. So if I'm planning the program, I listen to tons of music. Do I like this piece? You know, and does, you know, and then I pick by the music, and then I look at the dances and say, okay, do I like this dance? I like the music, do I like the dance? And is the dance appropriate for this community? What is the level of this community? And the music guides me, and I like dances, even if they're easy, I like them to be interesting. I like them to have a special moment. I mean, to me, Alice is a very simple English country dance, and yet it has something that special moment. And so I like that. And so I can do that, you know, easily in a group. And then, so I plan programs, and then how to call concisely and clearly, not spend all my time talking. And I had learned a lot of that with vintage. You know, how to be clear, how to make positive comments of something that someone was doing well, and then how they might improve without talking down to them or criticizing them. Yeah. And so for me, that is that's a challenge of especially how to teach in a way that people can understand. For me, beginners, you know, am I talking clearly? A lot of times it's the vocabulary. And a lot of times it's how do they learn? Do they learn, should I demonstrate this? Should I just talk more or say something different? So those are all the challenges, and teaching is something, and calling is something I'm always learning, and I love it.
That's great. And I really loved when I went to Boston and you were calling there. That, and boy, did I learn some memorable dances from you. So that was a wonderful time. We're going to bring up a guest.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Paul, you are on the line, and you should be able to turn on your camera and unmute your microphone if you're ready.
Hey, Paul.
Let's see if he responds.
Still mute.
Uh-oh. All right, hang on. We're working on it.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself.
Ah.
Hi, Martha. Thanks.
Hi, Paul.
Sorry, my camera is not working, but my microphone is, I hope. I'm really enjoying your talk, and I'm just so impressed by your storied career in dance. It's been said that running a demo team helps recruit new dancers, and I wonder, what was the experience with Real Nutmeg? Did you find that an advantage?
In some ways, one of the problems with Real Nutmeg is that when Val was here in the Hartford area, she tried to run regular English dances without success. So it was always a matter of trying to find people in Connecticut who were also going to dances. So we had people in Real Nutmeg from Massachusetts, from down near the shore, and from near the Hartford area. So people were traveling along. We even had John Buscaglia, who has since passed away. He was coming from Rhode Island. So initially when we were really active, we did draw in people easier as we stop. So I agree with you, Paul. Yes, if you're performing a lot and you're demoing, you do attract dancers as long as they're in your area. When we stopped performing as much, we didn't attract as many people. So yes, you are correct. I think that's very true. I think it would have helped us if we had regular dances, and that just never happened either. So
It's hard
yes,
to do everything.
it's hard to do everything. And I mean, it's even hard to have regular contra dances here in Connecticut. They're better now, but there seems to be more modern ballroom and Zydeco and that kind of thing. You know, and not a lot of English. So if I want to do English now, I go up to Amherst. Well, I'll go back up to Amherst when we're dancing. So Amherst is actually the closest dance now. You know,
We always have a spot for you in Westchester.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's a little bit further for me. And I wish I had been planning on coming to Celebration of Spring in March, and yeah. And,
Thank you.
and everything hit. So yeah. Thanks. Great question.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Yes, it's been so great having you on, Martha. I have a couple quick questions to ask you. Well, maybe the first one isn't quick, but one of my friends asked a question of one of our guests a couple of weeks ago, and she inspired me to ask more people this. What are you most proud of? And you've done so much.
What am I most proud of? That's a great question. I don't know if I would say it's what am I most proud of, but I get the most fulfillment when I see people I'm teaching or calling for dancing. Then I feel like, oh yeah, they're having fun. They've found, maybe they've got the craving now. Maybe they'll do more dancing, or at least in the moment they're having a wonderful time. When other people are enjoying themselves and I have somehow been a part of getting them there, I feel fulfilled.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good way of wording it. I'll have to work on the wording of that question, but great question, great answer. Yeah, you know, I'm a fan, you know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, when I am smiling at the band playing and they're, you know, my face is bright, you know, lit up with this huge smile, and they just light up because they're responding to it. It's like, yeah, that's my feeling when people are on the dance floor laughing and having a good time. And I'm like, I called the right dance. I did it in a way that they're happy. They're having a good time. That's a success.
Yeah, that's great. So let me also ask you, what is your favorite dance? I know you said the waltz, but do you have a favorite English country dance?
I do. Well, it depends on my mood. If I want a real charging dance, I often like Victor Skowronski's Companions, because that has really nice flow too. If I want a waltz or a triple time, I often I really like Gary Rudman's Honeysuckle Cottage, or because that's an easier dance, but I love Stepping Stones because it just feeds me. If I want a set dance that I want to dance with some people, it'll be Beach Spring. So it kind of depends. It's kind of like going to the library, or it used to be going to the video store, and what video do you want to watch tonight? It's kind of like, well, what mood am I in? You know, is it the first dance of the evening, or is it the last dance? You know, because the last dance I often like Barberini's Tamarine. I like to end with an upbeat. But if I could only do one dance, it might be it would probably be a waltz. Might be Honeysuckle Cottage.
Okay, great. Well, all great dances, of course. Well, oh, and people asked, where are you located? You're in Hartford, Connecticut area, but you call all over New England, right?
Yeah, I call over New England. I live in the Hartford area. I actually live in Bloomfield, Connecticut, which is just north of Hartford. I work in West Hartford, Connecticut. So I've traveled to Amherst to call. I've been in Albany. I've been in Burlington, Vermont. Part of it is because my brother lives in Montpelier, Vermont. So when I'm going to call in Burlington, I went to visit my brother and his wife and my aunt. I've been to Rhode Island. I mean, need me, I'll travel. I'll go where I'll go. You know, and I have family in a lot of New England, so I often combine it with visiting. You know, I have family in Colorado. I have family in California. I have family in Switzerland.
We'll have to get you out here then.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when things open up. Thank you. It's been so great having you on, and everyone who had questions that they sent in, we didn't get to, things we want to chat about, come to the after talk. They're posting it now, and we have a 5 things Dropbox. So if you weren't able to grab the chat box, it'll be in there. We'll have a link to, hopefully, as soon as I get to it, we'll have a link for the book that was mentioned that Real Nutmeg produced with all those fun dances. We have another great video to show you in the after talk of another dance from that book. So just, you know, check out our Dropbox and come to the after talk. We'll be having lots of fun stuff. Martha, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you to my 5 Things team, Lindsay Verbal and Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Henson on Facebook, and helpers Dan Vilter, Kara King, and Linda Nelson. A shout out to Colin Hume, who maintains an accessible index of all our web chats on his website in one place at a quick glance. So those of you who've been asking, oh, have this person on and that person on, make sure you check the list because they might have already been on. And we want to give a big thank you to the folks who have been sending in donations to our group. It's much appreciated. It goes to creating these shows and other things that we do in the community. So thank you, thank you. After chat link is posting. And now here's the big news. I said I wasn't going to do it. And then I just thought, no, you know, I think I need the 5 Things show as much as I need Karen Axelrod on November 3rd. So we are doing a 5 Things show with a twist. And we are posting the link for that. The web chat itself is going to be showing on Facebook and on our Historical Tea and Dance YouTube channel. And then after that, depending on however much time that takes, when that ends, we are going to have some sort of after talk where we can meet and chat and just be a little distracted from everything that's going on that day. So a lot of great moments that we are getting with a lot of our past guests. So you want to drop in. And then the next week on November 10th, we have Jonathan Jensen. Yay! So we're all excited about that. Prior to that, on Saturday, November 7th, we have a music workshop with Rebecca King on November 7th. So that is on our Facebook page. It's on our website. So check out that. Join us for tea time on Thursdays at 5 if you're in the mood for just dropping in and saying hi to some friendly folk. We are going to put up the donation screen. Thank you, Martha, for that. And our last exiting music is Lamp on the River. Composer is Dave Weisler. The dance is Treasure of the Big Woods. Choreographer is Joseph Pimentel. So we're going to listen to that beautiful piece of music and see you all in about 2 minutes. Bye.